Now, this isn't an everyday occurrence or anything, but I find myself really agreeing with Anthony Fantano on the subject of his new video. It's called Rock Isn't Dead. But on this subject, it's something that I really want to get your input in as well. But let's take a little look at what Big Tone is talking about.
Let's talk about rock. One of my favorite genres of music. You know, over here on this channel, we like to rock. You guys remember back to the 2010s, a lot of the popular output of music that occurred over that decade, the way that in that amount of time, hip-hop really became the zeitgeist that it still very much is today.
Now, this is something I've really been thinking about loads over the last week. It's something I've been speaking to friends about, and so it was weird to just open my recommended today and actually see Anthony talking about this subject and actually going on to have very similar thoughts to what I've been having. But just to give a little bit of background on myself, or maybe this is the first time you've seen one of my videos, it's almost 4 years exactly to the day, or give or take, when I put my first music reaction out on the internet on a channel called Rock React. Some of you guys have been with me all the way since then. Some of you guys, this might be your first video, who knows? But the concept of that channel is basically two metalheads reacting to hip hop. Well, actually, the concept of that channel was just reacting to music, but it quickly became two metalheads reacting to hip hop based on views and an idea that I kind of had beforehand. So obviously, my background as like a music lover was definitely based in the genre of rock. But what the channel should have been called probably is one metalhead and one guy that hasn't really listened to much music in the 2010s because he had 2 kids, but really did like hip hop anyway, and definitely did like metal, but also had a massive grounding in grunge and indie music, reacts to, there's too many characters for YouTube, it wouldn't work. I think what blew up the channel in the first place, apart from my winning personalities, was the fact that it was about a genre of music that had become, as Anthony says, the zeitgeist in hip-hop, and people that hadn't really been there for a lot of these big classic albums that meant so much to so many people. We got to discover a lot of these artists and a lot of these albums with you guys and in synergy with the comments section, which was amazing. But one thing I've been noticing recently on the views on my channel and just generally in the music in general, while hip-hop is still definitely the main genre of music in terms of popularity, in terms of sales in the UK and especially in the US, I'm not 100% sold on what the audience that watches my videos is absolutely engaged with right now. And that's just based on a lot of the views that I'm seeing. When I do a Kanye West, a Drake or a Cole, obviously huge artists and big views for the channel. But when I cover somebody newer who's massive, a DaBaby, a young boy, I've got a Dirk video coming later this week, I'm seeing fewer views. And that makes me think that maybe my audience is still listening to a lot of music that they love over the last 10 years, but also might be moving in slightly different directions. And it's kind of what Tony says here.
Some of the biggest tracks over the last several years from people such as Lil Nas X, as well as Olivia Rodrigo, have really centered the guitar as an instrument, be it a rock song or not. Even Doja Cat, who has proven to be one of the biggest hip-hop and pop crossovers of this generation, recently did a whole cover, you know, not just doing a rock song that stylistically is like on the fucking money in terms of how the original sounded, but again, a tribute and homage.
And even our boy MGK gets a little bit of credit, sort of.
MGK is legitimately one of the most popular rock artists out there right now. You know, again, his music, a lot of it is trash, but still, he is putting rock music as a style and as a genre out there in front of a lot of people.
He absolutely is, and I actually like that record from him, I think, more than Big Tony does. This is definitely something I want to focus on, because previously I felt like if I was putting out videos on this genre, the videos were DOA, they weren't going to happen. But I'm very interested in hearing from you guys. What are you listening to in this sort of space right now? One thing that I found really interesting recently is that one of my most requested reactions from this year was the band Black Country New Road. Now, I hadn't actually heard of them, so I did a little bit of research, and one thing I noticed is that Anthony's video covering these guys was way bigger than a lot of the other videos covering perhaps more technically mainstream artists, and that really piqued my interest. So I decided to one evening sit down with a drink and listen to that record. That album reaction's up on my Patreon now if you did want to see it, and I may put it out on a second channel later this month. But I mean, the album absolutely fucking blew me away and really spoke to a genre of music that I've not really engaged with that much over the last few years, just from doing this day to day. But what I found really interesting was going into the back end of my like Patreon videos, and that video for Black Country New Road has got way more views than like Earth Gang, Nas, other artists who would typically be in the lane that I would expect my audience to be watching. A small indie band from Cambridge over here in England. That really surprised me, to be honest, and it made me aware of a few things. It made me aware that much like there's so much like hip hop an R&B for the last 10 years that I've missed. There's probably a lot of great rock and indie music that I've missed over the last 10 years as well. But it also made me really think, is my audience actually way more interested in listening to this genre along with the great hip hop that we love than some of the new stuff in mainstream hip hop that's coming out right now? I get the feeling you guys are, and I think as a listener as well, I am. Later in this excellent video, Anthony goes on to actually mention some of the stuff that's coming out.
And even on the indie side of things, there are some very promising new trends and bands. Commercially,
Black Country you wrote in there. So this is a genre that I love. I've never heard Beach House, so that could be a good starting point there. Again, let me know down in the comments. I think this could be a really interesting time for music. I think it could be a really interesting time for music reactions as well. And one thing I definitely don't want to do is miss out on exploring bands in a genre that I absolutely love, and I would love to share that with you guys. So yeah, this is just going to be an interactive thing. Let me know what artists and bands that I should be listening to that are really speaking to you at the moment, and let's see if this is something that we can broaden the channel with. If you're here for your hip hop and R&B, don't worry, that's something that we're going to absolutely cover in great detail every single week on the channel. That's going nowhere. But are we doing a Beach House reaction this week? Maybe? Are we doing a Gang of You's reaction this week? Ultimately, the power lies with you guys, lies with the audience, and the information and feedback that I get in this comment section, on my Twitter, and in comments of other videos will help drive that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'm really interested and want to know. And who would have thought that I'd be here on a Monday agreeing with Anthony Fantano? But here we go. You know, I love you, Big Tone. All right, guys, catch you very soon. Subscribe if you love music and you want to be on this journey with me. And I'll see you all later, all right? Peace.